Okay, so I started recording. If everyone just kind of wants to say something really quick, make sure everybody's recording here.
Bing, bing, bing.
Cool. Oh, you're recording now? Yeah, I see it. Do you believe in life after love? Yeah.
You be careful. I'm going to add that to the beginning of the podcast.
I mean, you can't do it because copyright, but I mean...
It's time! It's time! It's
Hypertime to podcast.
Welcome, everyone, into the Hypertime to podcast. I'm your host, Josh Miller, bringing you the bookend of our Dwayne, McDuffie, and Milestone episodes. And so as we get into all the content that we could not talk about during this month, we're going to do that today. And to do that, I'm going to have some help with my co-host, Alan Muir. Alan, how are you again?
I'm doing great.
And we have our guest today that we had mentioned in previous episodes. But Alan, do you want to introduce him today?
Yes, I've known this man 10 years. We have done many podcasts together. He wrote for the first iteration of EGU. I think maybe one thing he wrote. He is my best friend, Javon McNeil.
Hello. How's it going, Josh? Alan, thank you for that lovely introduction. It's good to be back hanging out with you guys on the podcast. And like Alan said, we've known each other for 10 plus years now. Love him to death. Written a few things on different sites with Alan for Alan. Busy schedule, adulting, all that stuff has kind of stopped that. But yeah, man, I love podcasts. I love hanging out with you guys. It's always pretty much a fun time. So it's really nice for you guys to invite me to be a part of this Black History Month podcast, especially dealing with Dwayne McDuffie. I'm ready to go. And sorry about the last time. So second take, we got this.
Second take. Let's do this time. Already going smoother than I did. But I didn't want to just like pass over everything we did in our previous take because I feel like it is very important. And I don't want to kind of diminish everything that you had discussed. So I guess I'll just bring it all up again. If I can't even remember what all I asked. And so, yeah, I guess can you go into what it's like being a black man, a black nerd who is trying to find representation in media that is not always there? Kind of what is it like to both see it finally happen, and then what is it like to when you see it not be represented?
Yeah. Pretty much, like I said earlier, it's from where, growing up and being like a black nerd and just being in the comics and the anime and sci-fi and whatnot that you. It's kind of been a long journey, even though I'm not that old. I'm sorry, my dog's going off. Yeah, let me. So sorry, guys, but
That's good. Don't worry about it.
yeah, even not being I'm still kind of young-ish, in my early 30s, and I grew up with a lot of different media. Do you want me to like pause it for my dog so you can stop?
I'm fine with it. It doesn't bother me.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys.
It's just the dog
But
doesn't like dogs.
It's been a journey because you don't, back in the day in the 90s and stuff like that, you really didn't see many characters who looked like you on television or any of sort of the media, unless they were kind of like cannon fodder or like a background character or the stereotypical black guy or a black person in these movies type of thing. So it was kind of hard to be able to look up to a character and be like, hey, that's me, or I see myself in them, because there weren't many. So from where, growing up to where we are now, it's not good, but it's gotten a lot better. and there's been a lot more influential characters on screen where I have felt like a total connection to in some way or shape or form, and not just me, but for my nieces and my nephews to be like, that person looks like me, or I want to be that character. Perfect example is I have my twins kid, my nephew. He black and Hispanic, so he loves Spider-Man, and he loves Miles Morales, and he's like, that's me, that's me. And it just even thinking about it, it just warms my heart, and it just makes me want to cry, because it's just like, finally, this kid, he's gonna be a nerd just like his uncle. He sees a character that he can identify with at such an early age, whereas when I was growing up, it was like finding a needle in a haystack. The characters were there, but they weren't there. They weren't as mainstream as there are many white characters. And it's just, even with anime, there's a lot of, they aren't white, but they're white passing, but they're Japanese. But
Yeah.
wanting to cosplay, wanting to cosplay these characters, and you do it, and you have black cosplayers getting railroaded by white cosplayers, and other cultures like, oh, you're the black version of that. Like, no, I am this character. Oh, but that character isn't black, and it's just like, oh wow, okay, but that character's not white. They're Japanese. So what are you trying to tell me? It's like things like that, and just even with video games, you really don't get a main lead that's a black character. So when you finally get that, and they aren't in a stereotypical role, it's a great feeling. And it just, I definitely, like I said, we've come a long way, but we aren't at that threshold yet where I'm comfortable with to say like we have it all there. But it's a good first start.
Yeah, I mean, as a white person, I look at it and I'm like, no, we're not all there. Like, it's something that happened recently was the casting of Supergirl. I'm probably going to mispronounce her name, Sasha Callie.
I don't.
She's Latino, and they're
Yeah.
going to have a Latino Supergirl. And just as you would suspect, there's a big outcry about having a Latino play Supergirl. So I guess, because this happens a lot with black characters too. God forbid a black character take a white, a black person take a white character role or whatever. I remember that happening with, Perry White with Man of Steel or whatever.
Yeah.
When you see, so when you see stuff like that, like, what is your reaction to see a black person take a white character role? Because I know from my perspective, I don't really care as long as the character is still right. I don't care what they look like. I don't care who's cast as them. I just want the character to be portrayed correctly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, from your perspective, do you see a problem when stuff like that happens? And what is your response to criticisms of things like that happening?
See, that's kind of a tough one. And first of all, let me go to the whole Supergirl issue, which is weird and what just kind of blows my mind, especially when people say that Superman isn't human. He's humanoid,
Right?
He's not from Earth. So technically Superman could be any color or creed. His background isn't rooted as Superman is. He was born white. He's a white American. He's a white guy from Earth. He's like, no, when you say Superman, the first thing that comes out of your mouth is Kryptonian. You don't say white. You don't say any color or creed. So it's for Supergirl. There's black Kryptonians, there's Hispanic, different color Kryptonians, and that's what I loved about the Alan, the Superman, the Krypton series on Sci-Fi Channel. That's like the precursor to Superman. I loved it because you saw a planet full of aliens who were all shapes and colors. It was like, he's not white. And so with Supergirl, I'm like, yeah, she's an alien, so she could be whatever color or whatever, whatever race of a person can play her. Yes, she was predominantly shown as white, but her background genealogy race is not white, it's Kryptonian. So that goes into with the whole Perry White thing. When you see a black character, like a black actor playing a character who was predominantly white, if their like background wasn't like stated, like he was born white, yada yada yada, I'm like, okay, I don't see any difference, or I don't see any issue with it. But then you go into the territory of if there's a black character in the comics and then they turn to white, which is a lot of racist people's issue. They're like, oh, so what if we made Black Panther white, or like or things like that? I'm like, I'm in Africa, so he's a white. Or they're just like, oh, Captain America can't be white or black or any other color. I'm like, well, Captain America is just a symbol, so anyone can. Now, a black person can't be Steve Rogers because they said Steve, unless it's an Elseworld tale or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the lines get kind of blurry, and you can't be like, well, I'll say it's okay for this because they're like, well, then it should be okay for that. So it doesn't bother me as much. Like I have the same kind of reaction that you do because I'm like a lot of white guys on the screen anyway. But as long as the actor who's and they still get who white is, because there's really like you've seen him in comics as a white guy, but Perry White could have been a black person. He could have been a Hispanic person. He could have been anyone because you barely see Perry. There's no definitive Perry White this. So I mean, Lawrence Fishburne did a great job.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just kind of like, okay, but I know this is. Yeah.
I just
Go ahead,
I just
I'm sorry.
shared a picture in the chat of one of the multiverse Superman, like the President Superman to be
Oh,
specific,
yeah, I know exactly which one you're talking about.
who Grant Morrison created during his Action Comics run.
Yeah.
And I mean, obviously there wasn't. I'm not sure if there was an outcry for this because this was like around near the end of Obama's first term, beginning of his second term.
Yeah, and they also used him in Flashpoint, right? If I make her, when all the Superman and stuff came together and did all.
Uh,
It was one of the big comic runs there.
I know they used him. They've been using him recently, or they used him recently with Death Metal,
Oh, nice.
and then the 6-issue miniseries of Flash Forward that Redacted wrote. Just trying not to say a certain person's name who's been canceled.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally get you. Totally.
And
But yeah, like.
Dwayne McDuffie himself said when bringing up like exactly what Javon was mentioning, was talking about. He said no one's losing a paycheck here. Like no one's losing a job. And
Man,
it
it's
was
just.
go on.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, it's just a simple way to say what you guys are arguing about doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
They're
like
fictional characters. Like, who cares?
exactly. It's like I'm trying not to get off topic, but like I can, there are fictional characters, and they do like a lot of these characters hold a lot of weight to a lot of people. But it's just kind of like in the sense of times are changing. You have so many white, like, what's wrong with having a black one, or just like when people got mad when they're like, oh, Iris West was white, but now she's black. Ah, I'm like, is that hurting? How's that hurting you? It's not changing anything. You're still gonna have characters that were there. It's just she's so wrong, and then it's just like, all right, well, there's multiverses, so there's still the other character of XXX or whoever it is that might have just gotten changed. So why are you what's wrong?
Yeah.
Javon is he'll understand where I'm coming from, but for one of the people who me and him used to podcast with, Davon Curry, me and him were big Wally West, like original Wally West, like fans, and we were just crushed when like he didn't make his return in New 52.
Oh yeah.
And then then there's the whole thing with like nothing. I have nothing, no like ill will or hatred for the Wildest West. In fact, he's a really great character, and that was a pretty smart way to do a little Flashpoint twist on everything, or New 52 twist, saying that, oh right, because Barry altered the timeline, who he thought was his best friend is literally a different person. But then there was the retcon in the Flash year one that they were both there in the timeline. God, these timelines are confusing.
Wibbly wobbly Tommy, as they would say.
Well, now now that we're kind of talking about characters, there was that previous question I asked you in our failed recording where I asked you kind of the characters that you found representation in as you were growing up. Did you want to touch back on that stuff again?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of short, which is kind of sad because growing up, there weren't that many black characters on screen that left a big lasting impression or that lasted long, whether it's in a movie or, different sci-fi and anime. So there are definitely characters. It's kind of sad to say, but I would say one big one growing up was Zack on the Power Rangers. You see him and you're like, oh, okay, he's got the black boy vibe. He knows karate and he dances, he does his hip hop keto. So it was like, oh man, like, oh, the Black Ranger, like, all right, I can be him. It's just like, all right, cool, and he was a badass. Other than that, growing up, and it's on topic, Static. Seeing Static on screen was just like a kid, from the hood who grew up around, predominantly black neighborhood, had his dad and his sister, and, just a coming of age story of like getting powers and now what you're dealing with it and you're trying to make your neighborhood better. So there was him. There was John Stewart, who was, the strong black guy who, he was kind of stoic because of military background and just how he grew up, but then he really had a heart of gold and he wanted to do more, and he even with power he kept it in check. So there was him, and getting kind of more recent, there's Miles, and like I said earlier, how my nephew can see himself in him and I can see myself in Miles, especially in Spider-Verse and things like that, and it touched my heart. But there's other characters, but still it's just not so much as any other, white characters or some, even sometimes Hispanic characters. There's not many black, main characters, even side characters that are on screen and just make you feel like you can always pick so many out of the litter to connect with. And that kind of hurts, and it really does suck. And there are characters I know of, but it's just off the top of my head right now, I'm just kind of blanking. And that's how it is to be a black nerd in a lot of media, where I'm sure, you guys, being white and males, you can, off the top of your head, you can name like maybe 10, 20 white superheroes or someone that looks like you. Whereas me, I'm just like, all right, I can name heroes, and most of them are, mainstream that everybody knows of because those are the only ones they put into the media in rotation. And then there's a few other ones I can call out, but it's still not enough. And that's where when, you see people like, oh, there's another, oh, they just did it for the social justice warriors or whatever. Oh, they put a black or a woman character or in this show or in this movie, oh, just to appease people. I'm like, you don't understand the significance. You clearly have every face you see is just Western white guys. And even in anime, they're Japanese, but they look white. So it's kind of like, you can identify with those characters to a degree, but you're like, man, when is someone going to look like me who isn't a villain or a background character who isn't going to die?
Right.
So it's really hard. So when you finally get that character, you're just like, oh man, I feel like a kid. This is it's touching my heart, and it makes you want to cry and everything else. So, like I said, we're a long ways from really getting to that point. I won't say a long ways, but it's still going to take some time. But we're getting there slowly, but we're getting there.
I think a lot of that will come down to having more, non-white creators in all of these medias too, because they're the ones who are going to prop up these characters properly, in a
Yeah.
way to, get the feel right. Like I'm sure there are definitely, white writers who can get an LGBTQ character feeling authentic or whatever, but I f-
But see, I think the problem with a lot of that is where you don't see a lot of black writers or writers on screen is the people who are in these companies are afraid
Mhm.
to do it because they think that hey, look, if we put this character in, we're gonna lose money, or people aren't gonna go see these, and that's wrong because a lot of minorities are the big people who spend a lot of money on these movies. Oh, I found another character, and I gotta speak on this since we're there, and I'm gonna make it quick because I know this is Dwayne McDuffie. But another character who I was like, oh man, and I got really super excited for, and I saw on screen was Finn. But we all know how Disney did us with Finn, and I will never forgive them. And I will never, that is one of those characters, and one of the things that makes me so angry and so hurt. A lot of companies, what they do is they'll black or minority, and what that is just like Finn, how they and all the promos in the was the first new movie from the trilogy. You're like, oh, first face you see a black stormtrooper. Oh man, okay, this is cool. And it goes to the trailer, and you're like, oh man, he has Luke Saber. He's gonna be a Jedi, they did that to be like, we got to get the minority market in. Did a lot of black people because they saw, oh man, it's a face. It's Star Wars. We love Star Wars, and we've always kind of been in the background. You see this character, and you're ready for it. It's like, man, I'm gonna go. I love Star Wars first day one, and you see it, and you're like, okay, cool, and it's like, oh, that's how you're gonna. And then you see the rest of the trilogy, and you're just like, all right, Disney, f you, and that's how they do. They will bait us to get to spend our on these mediums, and then and I will never, Disney, if you ever hear this, I'm sorry, guys, I will never forgive you, ever.
Well, I also
Uh,
want to touch on Black Panther because, Dwayne McDuffie, one of his inspirations to get into all this was Black Panther. So I'm kind of bummed he didn't get to, live long enough to see the Black Panther movie. But one of the things that he loved to see was not just having like a black main character, but having having the characters around them also being representative of him having,
Yeah.
specifically in his words, it was like, oh, I get to see that the world has black custodians, or there's, black taxi drivers, or there's, whatever, black people just don't have to be like those stereotypical ones you mentioned earlier, or,
Yeah.
just the main character, that there could be a world filled with all of these black people too. And so
Yeah.
Black Panther did that very same thing. So I'm curious, when you saw Black Panther, what was it like not just to see a main character who you could connect with, but also having a world where it was like, yes, this is what media needs to have more of.
Yeah. Oh man. It when that movie first was announced, it was already like, oh my god, I love the character. Oh, okay, this is finally happening. Been since Wesley Snipes back in the '90s, but then it was like, it's a feeling when you go to the movie theater, and when you normally go, you see a whole different bunch of people, but especially with superhero movies, you mostly see white faces, light skin. But when that movie came out, it was like an influx of black people of all shades and colors in this movie, going to the movie theater, showing support. You know, black people in like dashiki, is kind of like a garb and stuff. And it was just like words cannot describe just the camaraderie, the love, support, to see community come out and be like, there's someone on the screen that looks like us, but not even just look like us. They made Africa and the culture that we have, and they made it seem so vibrant and so alive, where you typically see like Africa or it's a poor nation and this and this and that, and it's like, no, that's not it. Yes, it it has its parts and it's good and it's bad, but there's so much more than what is the norm you get in media. So to see that, and just Afrofuturism, which is a big thing I love in sci-fi, because sci-fi takes things from, but you don't really get to see it on screen much, or just in comics. So to see that come alive, and it was just awe-inspiring, just breathtaking, and it felt good to finally get a movie with an all-black cast in a special comic setting. Even though it was like, all right, you kind of had Martin Freeman and what's Andy Serkis, so it wasn't black just all the way around, but just the main characters and mostly the supporting characters, and it was in that setting. And then you had Killmonger, who was like, man, damn,
He could play a live action Vegeta.
yeah, that too was just like, okay. And that's what they like, oh, that was inspiration for Saiyan armor. And I was like, say no more, fam, say no more.
But more
just
like saying no more.
Snaps, I see what you did there. But just even with his character and his motivations, it was like he wasn't wrong. How he went about his actions, moral compassly wise, was not the way. And I loved how they humanized him, even though he people, and we're not about that life. But it made even T'Challa himself question his morals and the way his people acted and how they went about stuff, because Killmonger's like, man, you had all this technology and you could have came and you could have saved us and did better, but you chose not to. You chose to be and keep yourself in your little bubble. And you can see where that pain and that hurt comes from, because even being black in the community, from I'm sorry to go deep on this podcast and whatnot, but even with back in the day with slavery, there was that the slave masters, they divided even by skin tone. So they kind of give us like this crab in a barrel mentality. Like, if I got mine, it's from I got mine, so you better get your own, and you kind of do for your own self. And I love how a lot of those elements played into the movie and the storyline of the characters, and it's what kind of drove Killmonger to do what he did, because he wanted better for the black people that had to deal with slavery and so many other atrocities that they felt throughout the world, but here in the United States. And just even his in monologue was, he was just like, bury me in the sea with my ancestors. He's like, I'd rather die knowing that I fought for a cause to want to do right by my people than be locked away as a prisoner like they were. The made it here. Like, yeah, I could live, but like, nah. And that was a powerful line, and that hit, because it's like, damn, I can understand how he feels and where he's coming from, especially seeing so much death and hurt and pain. So that movie, it really was a social commentary. Really hit home. I'm sorry to drag on, but yeah, man, it's just you kind of with these things in this topic, you can't not talk about. There's a lot of good, but there's a lot of hurt I know Dwayne McDuffie, the people with Milestone, they had to deal with a lot of racism, a lot of pain, and a lot of the black to be big in the media or to try to get them off the ground, even as a black, comic. So there's a lot you can see where a lot of these things and inspirations that other people have taken from Dwayne and added into their work, and you can see that when I guess we'll talk about it later, but like Static Shock and some episodes and Justice League Unlimited and XYZ, so
If you guys don't mind me saying, back when Black Panther first came out, this is back when I was still doing recording with Phantom Zone. We wanted to do the guys wanted to do a Black Panther review, and they tried reaching out to Emmett. He wasn't available, and they're like, do you guys know anybody? And I was like, I know someone. Contacted Javon, had him on, and one of the people who wasn't on in the recording was like, this guy knows it. This guy's really good.
yeah. Okay, I'm sorry.
Josh, I'll send you a link for that episode. Just
Okay.
As much as me and the guys over there have had a falling out, I still want to support them.
Well, yeah, I mean, like this is it's a topic near and dear to me. Just talking about these because this is my life 24/7. This is what I, on a daily basis, just being a nerd or just consuming this type of media is where you kind of have to fight to see yourself in. Where once again, I hate to say it, but you guys being white guys, it's just like dime a dozen. Just there it is. You can pick up out of a lineup. Or for me, it's just like, all right, there's that character, but do they get shine like Duke? In DC Comics, I love Duke, and I love, how he came about to where he is now, a Signal. But you get those rare characters, but you look at the time frame in which you get those characters, it's not as often as oh, hey, look, we just made another white character. All right, cool.
Yeah, I mean, Black Panther was like the complete inverse of everything else out there. Like, instead of a predominantly white cast, it was all black. And in those white films, it's like a sprinkling of a black person or a Latino or whatever. And in Black Panther, it was a sprinkling of a white person here, a sprinkling of a white person there.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is exactly what black people have seen for so long. And I am so happy to have seen like the black Twitter and everything just blow up when Black Panther came out. I was so happy for everybody to finally have a movie like Black Panther out there for them.
Yeah, it felt like a giant party, and I could say another character who, I mean, he's technically a Marvel character because Marvel did a comic about him, but unless you, I guess, grew up in around the 90s or like black or something, you really don't know of him. I know Alan does, but even if you go back and watch a movie was written and directed by Robert Townsend called The Meteor Man.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I love that movie. The movie has Don Cheadle in it. It has Luther Vandross. It has Cypress Hill. Naughty by Nature. Just like just a whole bunch of different people. But Meteor Man, for people who don't know, was an average regular black guy, kind of down in his luck, whatnot. And he gets hit by a giant green meteor, and the meteor gives him certain powers. Where he can read a book, or any book he touches or something, he gets the knowledge for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds. It's one of the two. But it was like, oh man, a black superhero in a black superhero movie with a pretty much predominantly black cast. It was like, oh, you don't see this type of stuff. So growing up, and the movie is kind of cheesy, but I mean, so was the 90s. But it's a good film. It has heart to it. So definitely, whoever's listening to this, go check out that movie.
Yeah, it's been so long since I've seen Meteor Man. I didn't even go back and rewatch that.
So I'm going to bring up a character who technically was created a long, long time ago. but only because Dwayne McDuffie made her prominent in the Justice League series, and I'm not gonna talk about that iteration of the character, and said character is Amanda Waller, but Viola Davis, the way she portrayed that character in Suicide Squad, probably her and Will Smith were the best things about the movie.
Absolutely.
I would definitely have to agree, especially real quick, Amanda Waller. Viola Davis already has that BDE, because I don't know if you guys curse or whatever on your podcast, so I'm just gonna say that. But she was honestly the perfect choice for Amanda Waller to have like that swinging, like I am that head B in charge. You will listen to what I say, and you're just like, man, I don't want to cross her.
Yeah,
and that's who Amanda Waller is.
Mm-hmm.
She is what Batman is to the Justice League. Like, has no powers, but will f you up. And and she's the only one who I really could say out of humans that I think Batman gets chills from her just slightly a bit. He respects her. He knows. He's like, yeah.
She doesn't back down, and not many people will say that to Batman.
I mean, she doesn't even back down to Superman or anyone else. So, and they can crush her, and they still like, you know what? Yeah.
I'm trying to think of who it is that voices her in the animated series.
Oh, she's a famous black actress, but I forgot her.
I want to say Pam Grier, but I know that's not it.
Oh, ooh, it could be, but yeah, just that character, like, and once. Sorry I know I'm trying not to stay off topic, but that's a black woman who just has the chutzpah, as you would say, Alan. Yes, can I say that?
Chutzpah.
Chutzpah, like just the unmitigated gall, and just so strong and powerful, and she isn't done in a way that's demeaning to her, being a woman, or demeaning to her, like making her seem like, oh, she's she's a bitch, or oh, she's just like this person. Is like, she's not good, but she's not bad. She's doing things for a reason. Also, she hits a gray line because military and all that. But she's a woman with drive. She's a woman with conviction. She's gonna get the job by any means necessary. Sometimes it's not a good necessary and it harms other people, but she's like, I'm gonna do it. And you don't feel like you don't feel like, oh, you hate this person, but you don't hate them. You're just kind of like, you're not the person who's I'm on the team that I should be rooting for, but you're a person who I just respect wholeheartedly.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and it was actually CCH Pounder, who's equally as intimidating.
Yes. It's and just the voice and just the commanding presence, and you're just like, when Amanda Waller comes on screen, you already know what time it is. You just know. So you're like, okay. I mean, how can a woman who controls super villains, even though explosive collar, but still super villains respect her. The Joker respects her. That says a lot.
I think that's what makes me enjoy seeing her as a black character too. It's already hard to find black characters in general. I think it's, and I feel bad saying it because I could totally be wrong, but black females I think is kind of harder to come by, and to find a black female who literally everybody, no matter how powerful you are, no matter if you're good, if you're bad, Amanda Waller is probably the most fearsome character in the DC universe.
Yeah.
And I absolutely love the fact that she's a black, strong woman to go along with it. And to have a character, to have someone like her, you need to have a commanding person to pull it off. And Viola Davis is the perfect choice to do that.
Yeah.
And man, it was so great.
I don't think uh, who's the actress in Black Panther who plays the child's mother?
Oh, that's Angela Bassett.
Yeah, she.
Mm.
I wouldn't say she, or I shouldn't be saying that. I shouldn't be saying it. I shouldn't be any place to say how she was as Amanda Waller in Green Lantern.
I think she had that presence, like it was there, but because Angela Bassett's just an amazing actor.
Yeah.
But I just think that movie was just not so good. But even her as Amanda Waller, like you saw her presence and you felt that for the time that she was on screen. Like she had that commanding presence. It's just the movie wasn't good. But I would say she was probably like the best part of that movie.
Yeah. Also, I think I'm pretty sure that Viola Davis just took over anything she had any like any momentum she had going
Oh
in
yeah.
Green Lantern.
Oh yeah, for sure. By leaps and
Well, since we've kind of touched on it, I think we should probably actually get into some of the Dwayne McDuffie stuff. More headstrong in a way. But since we've kind of already touched on like Justice League Unlimited, I guess we could kind of start there with some of the stuff. One of the things that I always appreciate with Justice League Unlimited was the relationship between Jon Stewart and Hot Girl. Not just because like it was such a well done relationship, but having the interracial relationship too, I think was both incredibly what's a good word to put it? It's not something you see a lot. Period.
Yeah, it's
much less in animation.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that. And even when you do see it, it's kind of done cheesily. And I think, and like you said, I agree that relationship and just that dynamic was perfect. But I hate how it was done because this is another example is Worf and Dax. It's like, oh man, it's an interracial couple in a kind of nerd sci-fi setting, and then it's just like everything's good, and then they just completely just wipe the floor with that, and you're like, why? Why would you do this? Why would you break my heart? Why? Like, I don't.
I mean, Javon, you saw the documentary.
Yeah, it's just like, Alan. It hurts though. It hurts. Just I'm not gonna get into it. So go on before I get all emotional.
Yeah, I mean, I think like Justice League Unlimited is kind of one of the pinnacles of Dwayne's animation career.
I mean, Ben 10 and a lot of that too.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, Justice League Unlimited is one of those things I wish I had gotten to watch more of growing up.
Yeah.
But I didn't come on to it until much later.
Oh man, that was just the pinnacle of the early to mid 2000s. It just came out, and it was, it was a continuation of the Batman Superman adventures, and the Batman anime series and stuff like that. So it was just like, okay, cool. So they're still kind of keeping that with this whole timeline, and just the stories that Dwayne did with that just made you feel. There's so many episodes that just, man, watching it as a growing up, it just broke me. Just like, oh god, it's just like, why, Dwayne? Why are you doing my heart and soul like this? And just like one of the episodes, me and Alan talk about it every so often, is the Static Shock episode with Richie and his dad, and the episode when he got shot. It's just like, oh, why, God.
Was that was it Jimmy? Is that the episode name?
Yeah.
Is it the one where he's trying to stop the bully?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because as we were doing the episodes like back in November or whatever, I was talking about how I needed to watch Static, and of course I had no way to watch it. I tried looking it up on YouTube and all that and couldn't find anything. So I figured the one thing I would do is to find the episode that they won the Humanitas Award or whatever, which was that Jimmy episode. So I went back and I watched probably about 15 minutes worth of just like pieces of that episode, and I can see why that episode won that award because it's so well done. Obviously they can't go. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was going to say, obviously, they can't go too far with it being, a kid's animated show and all that, but for the topics they were doing and how they pulled it off, it was done in a way that I'm actually very surprised at how well done it is. And it feels real in a way that a lot of stuff like, that shows that try and tackle that sort of topic can get a little like too handholdy at the end. Like, oh, the bully and the bullied make up at the end and they become friends and all this. And it's like, no, like the dude who went there to kill the bully is now in juvie and seeking medical attention and, like, mental help. And the other guy got suspended and, there isn't really a happy ending there. And
it's funny because we're talking about it, and I'm thinking about the parallels, and I'm like, yo, Degrassi kind of stole that episode from Dwayne McDuffie. I'm like, hold on, this sounds oddly familiar. But going back to what you said, and it's so true, and that's what I love about things that Dwayne did. He was not afraid to go, even for an animated series. He was not afraid to go there, and I respect him for that, especially when you're dealing with minority characters, because you get a lot of hand holding and you get a lot of, oh, here's a happy ending, or they kind of half-assed it. And I think that episode, especially being younger and school like that, and watching Static, and not saying bullying was prevalent in school, but it was prevalent everywhere. Then you had stuff like Columbine and things like that happen.
mm-hmm.
And you don't really get to see an inner city perspective on it. And when it's kind of all, oh, they're degenerates and stuff like that. So Static humanized it, and it really, brought it home, and it made you feel for these characters, and it made you feel like you were in that situation. And it was, like I said, when Dwayne touched something, you felt that emotional. It hit you. It made you sit there and just come to yourself and be like, oh man. And I think that's where he really, these episodes in these series have a lasting impression. People, when young and old, because it puts you in a situation, and you don't get that a lot.
So someone who hasn't like really got to watch a whole bunch of the Stack stuff, is that kind of how the whole series went? It was very...
Yeah. Have you watched Black Lightning TV?
I have not, no.
Okay. So
I don't get much time to watch TV in general nowadays.
Gotcha. I would say a lot of, because it dealt with black youth in the inner city. So yeah, a lot of that, because it was a setting. If know the whole background of Static. So yeah, it dealt with a lot of those issues. It didn't always, it still kept it lighthearted a lot of the times, and it didn't always push it down your face. But he made it known and made it clear that, this is still in the inner city. Yes, there's gangs and there's drugs prevalent and here and there, and there's violence, but it's not over the top, and it doesn't make everyone look like the bad guy, and it doesn't make people caricatures. Yeah, you got gang bangers and stuff like that, and Static being a young black teen who's dealing with he lost his mom, so it's just his dad and his sister. He's navigating having powers, fighting to make his inner city where he lives better. And he's just like, he's a teen growing up, so there's hormones, so he's dealing with bullies, and then there's drugs in the school and different things like that. So think of like the movie with Michelle Pfeiffer, Higher Learning, a little toned down and with superheroes, and it's just like, boom, that's Static Shock.
Yeah, only having read like a few of the issues that have been put on DC Universe Infinite, and having a little bit more exposure with Miles Morales, Stack seems kind of like the precursor to what Miles would eventually become.
Yeah, I would.
Do you think he'll have the same success when his movie comes out?
Yes, just look at the the how everybody is loving the new character redesigns for comics that's coming out. Just look at even him being in Young Justice. I mean, he wasn't the Static knew or want, like really wanted, but everybody was like Static and they loved him, and I wish they would have done more with him. But I think he has more of a following, black, white, and just everyone loves Static. Everyone, you like Static Shock, and you hear people say superhero Static Shock, whoop
What,
whoop,
what?
you know what I mean? Or gotta be a superhero, Static Shock. Everyone loves Static, I think, and people have been waiting for a Static movie for a long time. It just needs to be done right. In DC right now,
Yeah. Yeah.
So I mean, okay, go ahead.
So I don't know if you guys ever saw it, but there's actually Shock and Justice League crossover episodes.
Yes,
It's like
those.
there were a total of 3 episodes, two-parter, and then like a regular one like a year later.
Yeah, one I know he just did something with Batman, and then the other one he went into the future to with Batman, and he asked Batman if it was Beyonce, which was as hell.
No. I'm talking about actual like Static Shock episodes where now where him and Gear go to
Yeah,
the Watchtower.
they had to fight the whole Justice League because over by Brainy, correct? That one.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
the second part of the episode was actually was written by Dwayne.
those are great episodes, but I definitely, isn't Michael B. Jordan doing the Static movie, or said to be producing it?
He's
That's the name that
producing
came
it.
to mind. Yeah.
If it gets taken care of how Black Panther was done, or even the first season of Black Lightning, I would say that movie's going to be great. It just has to be please just do it right. It just don't try to make it too out there or too edgy. Just take inspiration from some Dwayne stories and just write a nice script. There we go. I think everyone's waiting for a Static movie, so it'll do it.
So are there any like particular episodes that you all kind of love, whether in Static Shock or Justice League Unlimited, Ben 10, anything like that really stand out to you?
I'll let you guys go first because I've been talking for a lot, so I want to hear your perspective. It's like, what are your standout, Static or anything that
Alan, you're more of the like animation side of this than I am, since I never really got to fully enjoy all the stuff. Basically, with Justice League Unlimited, I always enjoyed how he gave everybody time to shine. It wasn't just a focus on the main, 7. It was, oh, this episode's going to have Supergirl, or this episode's going to have Shining Knight. I always liked the revolving door of superheroes, and yeah, I love that whole concept of changing it up and making it interesting every episode.
An episode I mean, obviously there's a reason I like it. It's because it's the two-parter of season 2 of Justice League called The Terror Beyond.
you got to
Got to look this up here.
So Dr. Fate and Aquaman, this is back when after Aquaman cut his hand off, and Dr. Fate and Aquaman, they borrow Solomon Grundy, and it was, and the reason, like, when watching the episode, I didn't realize this, but it was actually the reason it was those 3 heroes is like it was an homage to the Defenders.
Huh.
Like not the not the modern version, but like the original Defenders.
Like I'm guessing it was the one that he like grew up with.
Yeah,
Because I remember right, that was I think it was Defenders 10, which was the issue that he got in trouble with his mom about lying to her and going all the way to find the Thor vs. Hulk issue or whatever.
Did Alan, did Dwayne do the Justice League Unlimited episode with Batman and Ace?
that was the finale. That was actually the epilogue to Batman Beyond. So I'm pretty sure that was Paul Dini.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Like, there's so many, but I'm like, I mean, I did like this. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it gets a little tricky, like figuring out which episode's which without having everything kind of in front of us to go off of it, and everything kind of blends in so well together. And
Oh, I would say one of my he did epilogue. I love that one. That was a great fucking episode of Justice League. But I mean, that's one everyone knows. But as in, I'll go with Static. And my favorite episode, it was Static Goes to Africa. Do you remember that one, Alan?
No, I really wish I do, because
It's the episode where him and his family went to Africa for a vacation, and he met the superhero Anansi.
Yes, I remember that episode.
Yes, it's such a beautiful episode because it's like, all right, Virgil left Detroit and he goes to Africa to go visit the motherland, to go on a culture, experience with his dad and his sister, and just learn about heritage. And then he meets up with the superhero Anansi, that's an African hero, and he helps him out. And it was pretty much Static was just kind of like, I don't know if I'll ever be good enough to be a hero, to be like Green Lantern, John Stewart, because I think he met him an episode before. And Anansi just pretty much reassured him. He's like, you're better than, John. And not in the sense, he's like, you're stronger because you're younger and you're learning, but also because you have a whole, you're putting the weight of the world on your shoulder in your community. He's like, that's admirable, because he's like, you don't have to be like any other person, just be you. There's only one Static and you can do so much, but the little drops, like water droplets in the pond, those ripples, you don't always see like the end and the fruit of your labor, but it's there. And it was just like, such a feeling that another superhero, black one, it can tell him, dude, you're doing good, like you're coming along. And just to give him that validation and that reassurance, it was very, very touching. And he also did the Once and Future thing, part 1 and part 2. So just a league, yeah.
So I have just something I think Josh will be happy about, because of what I think the first part of about covering Dwayne. Far From Home. Dwayne who's credited for the story of that episode, which is the episode that takes place in the 31st century with the Legion, where he got to use Bouncing Boy.
His favorite.
And honestly, the third season of Justice League Unlimited it's pretty much just milestone straight up, because it's either Dwayne McDuffie writing episodes or Matt Wayne writing episodes, and the only other people like is J.M. DeMatteis for one episode, or for a couple episodes, Paul Dini, Jeff Johns. Yeah,
he did a lot, man. Honestly, without Dwayne, I don't think the DC animated universe would be where it is now. just he just he
Well, it is where it is now because he's not there to guide the ship anymore.
yeah. Well, like, don't get me wrong, Bruce Timm did a great job with Batman the animated series and stuff like that. But just everything Dwayne touched for DC animated wise just completely just, let's be honest, it demolishes that. It just, it really, really just, like you said, he did a revolving door around characters where it wasn't just Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, and Aquaman. It was just, you had Zatanna, you had Constantine, was he?
Uh,
No?
no, not he was technically still Vertigo
Yeah.
character at that point.
But even what he did with the villains, like the episode with Shiera and Grundy. Oh God.
Oh yeah, that episode still hurt. It still hurts to even think about that episode.
Oh my God. You see, I mean, like I said, just talking about it is, I don't have to finish going into the description about it, and if you've seen that episode, you're just like, it's been a long time, and that still hurts. And
And
just
and listeners, you can experience those episodes on HBO Max. HBO Max, $15 a month. Tell them we sent you.
yes, but
Now
just
sponsored.
hopefully. But I don't want to give it away if people have seen. But just when Shia was just told Grundy he can rest now, it was just like, oh God.
It's that meme of the kid with the emo kid with the headphones on.
Yeah, it's just like, can I stop crying? Why am I crying? As they say, I'm crying in the club right now. It's like, yeah, I'm really crying because it's, once again, just the episode with Batman and Ace, and Ace is dying, and she's pretty much what WandaVision is right now. What's going on is pretty much what happened in the episode. And she, Amanda Waller sends Bruce in there to pretty much shoot this child because she's dying and having a psychosis breakdown, and she can reality, bend reality. And if she doesn't, the whole world can just go kaput. And Ace knows Bruce is there to kill her, and Bruce just puts the guns down. He's just like, "No, I'm just gonna sit with you until the end, and I'm just gonna talk." And she was telling Bruce about her life and everything that happened, and Bruce told her about his life and him losing his parents and stuff like that. And they built a bond and a relationship. And at the end, she dies, and people, they think that Bruce killed her, and they're like, nah, he didn't. Just the sadness on Bruce, just these. Sorry, go on, guys, before I get emotional enough. But it's just, that's how good Dwayne McDuffie was. You didn't, you weren't getting animated series and cartoons and even anime at the time that made you feel like that. It made even like Prince says, this is how it sounds like when doves cry. I was crying. I'm not gonna lie. And even now, going back into it, thinking about that episode, I'm like, man, I want to cry, but I'm like, I can't. It's the podcast. I can't do that right. Feelings.
Yeah, I'm sitting here going through like the Justice League Unlimited episodes and everything, and it looks like starting at the tail end of the first season, Dwayne was a big part of almost every single episode after
Yeah. I mean, they had no choice when the man was bringing out bangers like that.
that. Yeah. So yesterday, Warner Brothers put out the, I think it's called A League of One, which is like the Dwayne McDuffie documentary they did right after he died. It's apparently on the Static Shock season 1. I think it was also originally with the Justice League Doom when that first came out. And there was a part in there where they're talking about when Dwayne first came on to do like episodes. I can't remember if it was Static Shock or Justice League that he first jumped on to do, but he came on board, and the person who was supposed to be kind of like his mentor to help him get started and everything, Dwayne was like, this is my first time doing this. I've never done this before. And the guy was like, oh God, like I have to start from scratch with this guy, only to find out like Dwayne popped out it was static because they said that his episode 1 like basically shaped the rest of the entire season with how
Yeah.
great it was. And he told, Dwayne told him it took him like 4 or 5 days to get the entire script written. And then after he died, Charlotte, his wife, basically came out and said, like, no, he did that in a day. Like, and I guess that just surprised all of them because what takes them like forever to do like 4 pages or whatever, he could do like an entire script. Like, I guess everything just felt so natural to him. And I think it's pretty clear in just how well done all of his episodes are, all of his comics are. Like, he loves it. He loves doing this. He's so good at it. He gets characters pitch perfect. It's masterclass.
And
He's
yeah, he put his heart and his soul into it, and you can see where he even put his life into character, and that's why where there are wrong right or black, but when it comes to telling black stories or just any other minority stories, no one can tell them like the people that live. And I think that's where the magic, especially for Dwayne, came from. Because he, not saying he had to live that life, but he's a black man living in America. He knows the hardships of what it is and what you have to go through being that type of person. Excuse me. And that's where it shines, and that's where we, like I say, we need more minority peoples writing minority characters, because there's, like, I don't know what it is to be white, so I can't tell a white story, to a degree, or how it goes, but I can tell you about my life as being a black guy, like I'm doing on this podcast, and people are like, oh, would you write a character, or could you give some input or some insight? And I'm like, yeah, I can give, XYZ, da 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 da. And that's where you get a lot, even with you see like the writers for doing for Black Panther and stuff like that. It's the black experience, you know it from living it. So I think that's why and he was just magic in general. He could just write and just, like I said, he made you feel.
So like there's I like Josh, I was also reading through certain milestone related comics on DC Universe Infinite,
mm-hmm.
and the I think it was the second issue of Static where he shows up, and I'm blanking on the name. It's the antagonist of the series name.
Oh, I always want to say Hot Streak, but I don't think that's it.
Ben something.
Yeah.
The part where he goes to, like, he shows up all confident and suave to rescue Frida.
Mm-hmm. On the playground.
Yeah, and then he's like, he has a moment where he just freaks out and just almost has like a panic attack. Is something that I was reading it and I was like, is this really happening? No,
Hot
not
Streak. Martin
Yeah.
Biz Money B Scapone.
his money. Yeah.
Biz money.
Like I always thought that when I watched the show, that, oh, this show goes places, and then that issue, and like when Frida is trying to like get him to calm down and like tell him like, you have powers, you can beat him. He's like, no, I can't. I can't do it. And so like, it's not just a black character who's scared. It's not a black character who's scared, or it's a black character who's been bullied, has trauma result from said bullying, and even though that he's been given a gift, it's like the more things change, the more they stay the same. And just to go back to the episode where we mentioned the milestone episode that we did,
Mm-hmm.
where I totally got my facts confused, which is typical me. The whole thing where you mentioned that the bombing in Philadelphia,
Oh yeah.
because of it was a black movement, literally called Move, and they dropped bombs on the building, and I think 10 or 11 people were killed, and some of them were, and almost half of them were children. And like I was watching this YouTube, there's a YouTube channel I watch called Comic Pop, and there's a certain show they do, or there's a show they do called Back Issues. Well, where like over the course of like an hour, maybe more, maybe less, they'll talk about a certain trade paperback, and I had to mention to my sisters that Static's powers, like his origin, has been messed with, sort of, because of like his original origin with the Big Bang, and then like the New 52 stuff, and then again with Milestone Returns, issue 0.
Did they change it from the big from the Big Bang in the Milestone Returns?
Yeah, well, they sort of made him. They sort of toned it. I think they toned it down if I recall correctly. But like,
I haven't read the.
Can you guys talk, and I'll just quickly take a glance at it.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the things I always appreciate, like going through and reading some of his comic stuff, is that he always found a way to kind of link with what it's like being a black person in a, heavily dominated and controlled white society.
Yeah,
And one of those things is kind of noted in his first issue of Hardware, and he basically relates it to a pet parakeet. And so I just kind of want to read through some of the kind of monologuing that's kind of going on here. It's basically the panels are just showing this black kid letting out his pet parakeet, and the parakeet flies off trying to fly out the window and into freedom. And so the whole thing says, when I was a kid, I used to have this parakeet, and sometimes when I'd open up his cage to clean it, he'd escape. This little bird would see the backyard and make his move. Invariably, he'd head straight for the window fast as he could, and inevitably crack his head on the window pane. A barrier of glass, unseen and incomprehensible to him. So he'd try again, over and over, until spent and defeated, he couldn't try any longer. My bird made a common error. He mistook being out of his cage for being free. And it's like, damn!
yeah.
Like such an easy metaphor to understand
Yeah.
for something that I will never truly understand.
He kept it light, but it still was very impactful, and it's just like that. It's just like, oh, you think you're free? Nah. it's like there's always an invisible wall or an invisible force that's pretty much stopping achieving more. And I'm pretty sure he wrote that because that's how he felt, with his other compatriots making Milestone comics, and just hey, look, you're in a white dominated society and world, and especially in comics, and here you are, a few black guys coming together, and you're trying to make characters and trying to do something where the big boys at Marvel and DC are all up in your face, and
it's like, how do you step into that, that ring in that arena, especially when you're making black characters? To think about to being them making my soul and to try to make you're doing black characters and smart and powerful characters, and you're trying to get these comics out there, and then especially when you're the subsidiary of DC, like, man, that pressure, that pressure, and just even doing, you writing stuff, and then you take it to the big wigs, and they're like, nah, because I remember thinking about when he did that cover of Static,
Mm-hmm.
where it was Static and his girlfriend just sitting on the couch and they're kind of making out or whatever, and the big wigs were like, "Oh, that's too sexual. You got to do something else. You can't have that." It was just like, dude, it's a black teen. I mean, in the comic, I think him and his girlfriend at the time they had sex like that, but it was like the cover was just like two black teens making out.
Yep.
And they're like, nope, we can't have that. But then you see, you know, Jean Grey and Scott Summers making out and sexually and he's grabbing all up on her and just like different stuff like that, with white characters. And it's, that gets passed all the time. But black love, nah, we can't have none of that. We can't show black people in a positive light. And just reading that interview, and I was just like, man, I know he was pissed off. He was like, you MFers, how dare you? And so it's just like here that the whole parakeet metaphor is just like, man, he's not wrong. He's not wrong at all.
Okay, so I just brought up the Milestone Returns. They actually made it even. They made it. I'm not saying they made it better, like the origin. I just quickly sped through it.
Mm-hmm.
Virgil and his sister are attending, or I think his sister, or no, Virgil and a girl he likes are attending a Black Lives Matter protest or rally, and a bully shows up and initiates a fight. The police are called, and they throw in the tear gas.
So I'm taking the tear gas is what got him his powers.
Yeah, and the last thing that he says, or the last thing with Static, it says, he mentions, at least now things are a lot more even, like the fighting between everyone, or fighting between him and his bullies. Like, yeah, they are vicious, but I'm smarter. I understand my powers more than they know anything.
Kind of weird with the whole tear gas. Why tear gas?
Well, the tear gas from the comic pop, the way the guy described it was, so like the tear gas was laced with some radiation, so they could be tracked.
So
I'm
kind
glad
of
they
like
didn't change it up too much from the original story. Like, there's a little bit of difference there, but for the most part, it's pretty similar.
Yeah. All right. Not too bad. I mean, it kind of throws me off, but I'm like, I can see it. I can dig it. I can.
Like, and like the Milestone Returns, Javon. It begins with Rocket and some friends driving up to it. What they think is it's just like a haunted house.
Yeah.
And she goes in to steal something, like I'm forgetting what it was. But she runs into Icon.
I was just about to ask, where's Icon? Where's Icon?
And he goes from like black to his real appearance.
Yeah.
And
so
go ahead.
No, I was just thinking, excuse me. I was wondering if they were still gonna have like Black Lightning be like a mentor to Static, like how he was before.
I'm not sure if they're gonna do that.
They're trying to keep it like on a separate world, right? So it's not.
Yeah, Earth M.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So Earth milestone, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. So I guess they'll eventually cross them over, but aren't all? But see, here's my question: Didn't with the whole the Metal series, didn't they all the Earths are in the same kind of multiverse, right?
Well, the way they described it was like everything that there's the canon between everything is now looser than ever. So there could be there could be a future interaction between the Earth M people, like the Dakotaverse and the mainline DC universe.
Yeah.
And Javon, if you when we're done recording, I put in the link to the DC Earth Milestone Returns.
Nice.
I highly recommend you read it because it'll just get you like really hyped for April.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And and even in the sense of, I'm glad they're not linking Earth M to the regular DC, because I do want Milestone to thrive on its own, because those characters deserve that. A lot of those characters don't get enough shines, but I do eventually want a nice crossover to happen, because I think, man, just think about it. Just all these black heroes coming together and just kicking some ass. Fuck yeah! I mean, excuse me. Sorry. I'm excited if you can't tell.
We can put explicit tags. It's not a big deal.
Yeah. Please do. It's like I said, these characters just mean a lot, and to finally see them come back, like I Red Milestone back in the early '90s. Not a lot of the comics that had some, but still, it's just like, oh yeah, they're like, Alan, we talked about it. When they announced the return of Milestone, it was just like a collective. Oh, the heavens are open.
Siobhan, did you ever hear about the story? Hear the story about when everyone thought that Dwayne McDuffie was turning Justice League black?
No.
Okay, Josh, should I fill him in?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Dwayne McDuffie was joining. He was writing Justice League back in like 2007.
Yeah.
And he was told to bring in. He was told by editorial to bring in more black characters.
Mm-hmm.
So like Vixen, John Stewart, Jason Rush, and and the art like someone like I think the artist did a pinup, or not a pinup, like did a mock up of how all the black heroes.
Yeah.
Someone leaked it, and there was a bunch of outrage. Like, and the exact quote was, "He's turning the Justice League all black. He's getting rid of the white guys."
Cry harder, please.
It's sad because, like, even during that run, like, it's not like he put a big focus on all those black characters either. So it's like making this big hubbub about having, like, I think 3 black characters in the Justice League mainly, and only one of them really gets a focus, and that's Vixen. Like, John Stewart's there, but he's not really a main character.
He didn't have the role he has on the current series, or when Scott Snyder was writing it, where he was like the straight up head of the Justice League.
So, yeah, it's just one of those stupid things about dumb white people getting all upset because a black character takes the lead spot for a little bit. It's so dumb.
Yeah, it's funny that we're talking about it, and I just went on Twitter, and I'm looking at a site. They're like, oh, DC stands for diverse of casting, and it's showing, all the different characters that they have that are coming up in future projects, movies and stuff like that. And I never, like, don't go look in the comment section. Don't go look in the comment section because you
Never.
already know what the comment section is gonna look like.
Don't feed the trolls.
And some white guys like rip comic accuracy, and I'm just like, I'm just like, cry harder, but just it's people like that where it's just
Comicsgate
like,
people.
yeah, just I guess Comicsgate racist, just a-holes, douchebaggeries. It's just.
And they always try to be really sly about it. It's like, oh no, I don't care that they're this. It's because their hair color's not blonde anymore. It's like, no. We know what your real problem is here. And it's not something as, tiny as the color of their hair or, how tall they are. It's
just like one of the.
Excuse me, I dropped my fedora.
like one of the comments is, yes, now since this is okay, how about a white guy for Jon Stewart or Icon or Static, or would that be whitewashing? I see. And I'm just like, just exactly what I talked about earlier. It's just like, these are characters, like, you're trying to be like, oh, we can make them white. I'm like, Static, Icon, and Jon Stewart, you can never be white. Why? It's because those characters are specifically African American. They were made African American. Like, you can't be like, Peter Parker's black. No, he's a white dude. But Spider-Man can be anyone. It's like they get mad, like, oh, it's a black Spider-Man or this or that. I'm like, okay, but Miguel O'Hara was a Hispanic Spider-Man, but you guys love him. I'm like, so why is it not cool for we to have? I'm like, Spider-Man is a title. It's a moniker. It's not like that character with that title was specifically, like a white guy. Like, you can't be like, oh, we're gonna turn a white guy black light. A white guy be Black Lightning. The name is Black Lightning. It's specifically. Go ahead,
Javon. Have you gotten a chance to read the series, the Wonder Comics series, Naomi?
No, but I heard so many good things about it.
It's fantastic.
That there's a major tribute to Dwayne McDuffie in that series.
Oh, okay.
It's getting a show.
Oh, yes, I do know about the show. Is this still happening? Because it's going to be
Yeah.
CW, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That and the Wonder Girl series.
Oh, nice. But yeah, I'm sorry to get off topic, but it's just like things like that. Like I said, you can't make Black Panther white because it's Black Panther. You can't make Static white because Static was a product of his environment. You know what I mean? So when you see like comments like that, it's just like, please. It's like, please do not get smacked down. We're not causing violence, people who are listening to this podcast, but just know the frustration of being a black person in nerd media and comics, and you have to hear this crap. You have to see people write this crap, and you're just like, woosah, don't go into the comments, don't say anything because you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, so you keep it to yourself.
It's just so sad. Like, it's like 98%, this is just pulled out my ass, 98% of the characters in comics are white. And suddenly now it's 97 because now there's another black character, and suddenly it's like, oh no, they're coming for, they're coming for our white characters. So it's like, you still own like almost the entirety of the characters that exist in this medium. Why are you so frail and pathetic to be so concerned about this additional character?
Exactly. And that's when I said earlier, where it was just kind of like offhand. I mean, you guys know a lot of black comics and stuff, and even obscure characters. But a normal person who's just getting into comics, or who's on the kind of shallow end of like reading comics, is like, how many black characters can you really name that isn't Static or Cable or Blade or something like that? How many characters can you actually name? Versus how many obscure ass, white characters. You can name. Oh, here's Miracle Man and this person, and you're just like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
It's like if I gave you a list of 200 characters at random, and I told you to close your eyes and point to one of them. What are the odds that's not going to be a white character?
yeah, the odds are very low. Let's be
There's-
real on that.
There was another thing that Dwayne McDuffie mentioned about like how white or not white. Basically, just how comic book fandom is about certain things.
Yeah.
Like Batman getting the drop on a certain character,
Ah.
believable, or in our eyes,
Mhm.
believable. But if he was writing Black Panther getting the drop on Thor, they're like, that can't happen.
Yeah.
It's not
Batman
possible for
with
a
the-
black character to have prep time.
Yeah. I was about to say that. Oh, Batman has prep time. He could do this. Oh no, that character can't because of now they want to throw in physics and this and that, and you're just like, oh, okay, cool. That's just like if I'm like, who do you think will win in a fight, Thor or Static?
Oh,
And I'm like,
that's actually I would love to see that.
I would love to too. I honestly think Thor would get. I mean, because you've seen the superpower. I think did they want a superpower beatdown on once? I know the Static fought someone and he just mopped the floor with him. I'm like, oh, I think it was Spider-Man or something. I don't know, but I'm like, Thor has lightning. Static really takes electromagnetic powers from around him. So I think he will be able. He has untapped energy. I think he would probably beat Thor. But I could be wrong. But I still would love to see that fight.
So. Did you read Icon, Javon?
Not a lot. I've read like a few things here and there, but not a lot. So you're probably more knowledgeable on.
Because he's one of those characters I would really be curious to see, like, your opinion of him. Mainly because he seems like one of those people one of the black people you would see at a Trump rally. In a way, because he seems to have like, oh, the police are on our side,
Yeah.
Pick yourself up by the bootstraps and that kind of mentality, very kind of Republican-esque. And so I would be really curious to see like what your opinion is of him, just because of how different he seems to be written to what, like, at least I imagine I would like to think a lot of black people are. Like,
Yeah.
it's not like the government's really been great to black people in general, but I feel like Republicans are probably a little bit worse on that regard.
I mean,
I could be wrong. I don't want to.
Yeah, like I said, I can't really give a definite thing on that, but I've read small things here and there. But from what he sounded like, I think he was probably mostly written as an optimistic kind of black character.
Yeah.
Whereas he's trying almost in a sense kind of a Sam Wilson-esque to a certain degree, where he wants to see the good in the country and the people who are doing this stuff. So he just kind of isn't letting the negative side affect him, but at the same time, I can see where that is like you are kind of disconnected towards other people, because there are black people that are like that. They're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna let what happened in the past and slavery and all that stuff. It happened, but the country's trying to do better, and it's like, all right, it's cool. You want to have optimism, but it's like, when does two, or it's kind of like, you kind of got a small point, but bro, you can't pass. You cannot just wipe the. So that's from what you're telling me. That's what I got, but I definitely have to read more to give a full in-depth analysis. So please just kind of take what I just said with like a grain of salt. Sorry.
Well, I think
I'm
it's
just
also
laughing too
pretty
hard.
great because Rocket is kind of like what I imagine, like the correct response to be. And Icon is the opposite. And so like they're two kind of personalities and kind of understandings on how the world should or does work kind of clash in a way that's really entertaining.
Yeah.
So for like one example is that in, I think it's issue 2 of Icon, they both go to help this like kind of hostage standoff, and the police are surrounding the building, and Icon lands, and Rocket like the entire time is like, don't do this. Like, the police are not on our side. You do not go down there and talk to them. They're not going to side with you. And he's like, no,
Yeah.
no, just give me a chance. He goes down there, and he starts trying to make his point, and they're just like, no, put your hands up. We're going to arrest you and all this. And he's like, okay, I'm trying to help you guys, but if this is what will get you, and he just kind of goes
Yeah.
along with it. And he doesn't like the fact that like Rocket will use the hard R version of the N, the N word and all this.
Yeah.
And it's just like the way that they clash on so many things is fantastic. But it's one of those things
Yeah,
I'm like, Icon, man, I don't know if I can agree with you on all this stuff.
And like I said, you get to see the two different sides of the black struggle, like the black persona, whereas you have like this kind of affluent kind of black guy who's life is going good for him, and he's doing his thing, which is Icon, where he's kind of upper middle classes, and then you have Rocket, who is kind of like the everyday black guy who's been in the trenches, who's like status, you lived in the hood or the inner city, and you see the horrors and just like the struggle that comes with it. So you're more in tune with reality, and you kind of got a chip on your shoulder of a sense, but it's like, listen, I know I'm seeing with my eyes open, whereas Icon is just like, no, we got to do better. I got this power, so I don't want to seem as like the scary black guy. And, I got to be kind of upstanding, upright, how society wants me to be. And that is like an eternal struggle with black people and even myself. And I think Jon Stewart is the best of both worlds on that, because he is like, the military man, so he's standing for what needs to be right. But Jon Stewart's like, nah, I'm still black at my core. He's like, I will let you know what's up, and I'm not gonna take your crap. And that's why I love Jon. So, and just you talk about Icon and Rocket, I'm like, they're just two sides of the inner turmoil and the inner fight of a black guy. Where, like I said, you can come from the streets or just be a regular black guy, but people are going to think you're scary. And so when you get out, like how we have code switching in black language, where we'll use AAVE, which is African American Vernacular English, or, it's like, yo, what's up? And stuff like that when you're around other black people. But then when you kind of get out in public, to not let people think that you're uneducated or scary or a thug, you kind of put on a white voice, and you're like, oh, pronounce words more. Hi, how you doing? It's a great day out there. And it's and it's not that you're doing it to be fake, but it's kind of a defense mechanism that we as black people have to use when navigating and going out into the world, because people already think, like I said, you're scary or uneducated or this and that. So you got to use this kind of chameleon defense mechanism to live and to survive. And I think that's pretty much what Icon and Rocket is, where Icon is that I want to be better. I want people to see that I'm not who they think I am. And, upstanding citizen, not saying he's faking it, but that's how he survived, especially being a hero, where Rocket's just like, nah, I am who I am. You either hate it or love it. You're just going to deal with this. And, this is my blackness. So I totally get it, because both sides of these two heroes are me and millions of other black people. And this is just a daily thing. So I think, you might not agree with Icon, and it's just kind of like, oh, God, you seem like you're going to be one of those. And you're just like, okay. But when you really understand it, you're like, okay, so I think that's brilliantly done, especially in the world of supers. That's just kind of like,
that clashing comes, and it's just like, you're still black at the end of the day, no matter how you try to present yourself and how you want people to see you, they're still gonna treat you like a black man. And it's kind of a funny thing to laugh at, but it's so true. It's like you can't, and I know this is kind of getting. Sorry, guys, I don't mean this to be political, but I mean it's Black History Month, and we are talking about it, so it's still on.
I mean,
topic.
this is why we had you on, because it's not like me
Yeah.
and Alan really understand all this.
But it's like I tell friends everywhere, from different cultures and background, they're like, oh, come hang out here in this country here or whatever. You won't have it as bad as you do in the States. And I'm like, as lovely as that might sound, that is a total lie. And I'm like, because how the world views and portrays black people, especially, black men, I'm like, no matter where I go, that stigma is on me. And you see it in the media and stuff every day. I'm like, well, I'm not going to get into that, but black people being done the way they are by the government and by police, and they could be affluent black people, don't have a record or anything, or just living their daily lives, and the first thing they do is when the police or someone's in the wrong is, let's go back and look at their criminal record to see, oh God, you didn't return a book on time, you're a villain. And it's like, this person was just taken down brutally, their life was snuffed out, and you're gonna go back into their past to justify what just happened?
Yeah.
It's like, wow. So and that's where, sits where it's like, I can just be like, hey, I'm the cock of the walk and everything's good and I can pronounce words and but at the end of the day, people are still gonna see. And I think that's where, Icon and Rocket, where Rocket's just like, I'm guessing whenever they butt heads, just like, dude, at the end of the day, you're a hero, you have all this power, you're black. The world's still not going to be kind to you.
See, this is why I wanted you on, to get this perspective.
I appreciate you having me on. But yeah, man, that's just how it goes. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to go all deep and political. I'm like, it's a podcast. It's Dwayne McDuffie. We're gonna keep it light. But like I said, I apologize, but at the same time, I don't apologize because people need to hear these type of things. This is my life and the lives of many millions of other, black people that live in this world and in this country, and it's got to be, it's got to be heard. And the stories have to be told because it's the reason why Dwayne McDuffie, a lot of other artists in the comic realm and other medias, why they tell the stories that they do, because there's so much more that people don't understand or don't see or choose not to see, and it also just humanizes black people, the minorities of, we are human beings too. We're in the struggles that we deal with, and these stories and give us an outlet to be able to take, to show our frustration and our pain and our love and our joy and all of those different things. And I said that's why I love how, the Static Shock cartoon showed a lot of it. I'm pretty sure there's millions of, white kids who only heard about the inner city through, rap videos or movies or stuff like that, which, didn't always paint it in a positive light.
And I was one of those.
And
I
then
grew up in a small town of like 5,000. I think I could count the number of black people I knew on one hand, just to put it in perspective. So yeah.
Yeah, so you see that, and then you kind of see Static, and you're like, whoa, okay. And it came on the Kids WB back in the day, so it was in a lot of households.
Mm-hmm.
So to see that, and it kind of brings my heart joy where I see different, people of different races, like, man, I love Static too. Like I posted the redesign on my Twitter, and it blew up, and people were like, oh, Static, I used to watch this as a kid and stuff like that. And I'm just like, me too. And you see a lot of black people talked about it, but then you see all these other people, so you feel like that camaraderie, and you're just like, oh my god, man, like this. And I wish Dwayne McDuffie was still alive today to see. I mean, he saw it, but even now in this new age, and it's on HBO Max, guys, so go watch it now. To see the influence that he has had on so many people in this medium, black, white, just all shades, and it's a lovely thing. And I'm just glad that his wife can see that. But I just wish Dwayne was here to see these characters and the love and the impact that he had not only on my life, but now I can share it with my nephews, and just other people can share it with their kids, and so on and so forth. And it's just it makes you feel loved, and it makes you being a black person in nerd media, it makes me feel seen. And now I'm just like, I see the new stuff with Static, and I'm like, oh man, I want to cosplay that. I've always wanted to do a Static Shock, like I've always wanted to do a Static Shock cosplay, but I'm just like redesign is so freaking cool. Like I want to do this like right now. So to now you're getting like these other milestone characters coming out too, and it's just like I'm gonna excuse me, I'm gonna cosplay them as well. I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna read all these milestone comics. Support black artists and black comic makers and things of that nature. It's just like I am ready. It's 2021. I am ready for this. I've been waiting for this for God knows how long. It's just like it's finally happening, and it's just kind of like DC's doing it. I'm like, Marvel has been doing it, but I'm like, all right, Marvel, now's your time to really, really shine. Besides, the main black characters that you got us, like, hey, you gave us Miles, and now we got Riri, and I freaking love Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, and I'm ready for that show. So it's just kind of like a revolution just coming out, and not just with black characters, other characters, of other minorities as well. Definitely, we got to up that. I think Marvel is just doing a career as well right now. They're coming out with one who's supposed to be like the Korean version of Captain America. I forgot his name, but yeah, they're doing that.
Yeah,
but yeah, just once again, I'm black, so I'm just gonna stick with this in the Black History Month. But it just feels so good. It just the energy of just like, oh, we ready, and just even seeing when Black Lightning first came on TV on the CW, me and Alan was always talking about it. And it was just like, man, that you definitely have to watch it. I kind of feel like after a while it kind of got a little cheese, but it's still good. Still definitely a great show, but it tackled a lot of issues that were times and what's going on. And you can feel it in the writing, the characters, and it hit hard. And there's episodes that that made me mad. I was ready to fight. But also at the same, like really, but there's episodes that at the same time it made me feel, like a camaraderie. It made me cry. It broke me down to my core, and just being black, and you see these stories and you see these issues. And I'm just like, I see this day, I live this, and it like I said, it hits home, so you can identify with that. And it's really good because, like I said, you don't get so much. You see a white character and you're like, all right, I can understand that situation, but I can't see myself in that situation as a black character. So it's just like, yeah. It's kind of more.
So the Dwayne McDuffie Award for Diversity was it was announced a few hours ago,
Oh, nice.
and the winner was the creative team of, they called this Enemy,
Okay.
which is George Takei, Justin Eisinger, Steven Scott, and Harmony Becker. So
Also
Nice.
important to note that today we're recording on the 20th. Dwayne McDuffie would have been 59 today.
Oh, so the 20th was his birthday? Oh man.
Yep.
And
So
he
we're Go ahead. I'm
had
sorry.
had he lived, apparently he would have been writing movies for Sam Jackson.
Yep.
What? Oh, see, now just kind of like a Dwayne McDuffie, Sam Jackson collab. Like, what? How awesome! And I feel bad because I did not know yesterday, because since we're now the 21st, I did not know that was his birthday. So now I'm so glad we didn't do the podcast last week and we're doing it. Sorry about that. I had things to do, but it makes this so much more. I had the word, it was on the tip of my tongue. It makes it more special and emotional because we're talking about a man who, and I feel like I've just kind of taken over the podcast. I'm so sorry, guys.
Don't apologize, please.
They're gonna be like, that guy talked the whole time. We didn't get. So I apologize, but it just, to me, that just, it feels so special that I get to talk about such a man who has impacted my life so much as being a Black person, and he saw himself in me and other people, and to celebrate his life, talk about all his achievements, and even though I know you guys have talked way more about it, throughout the whole month and stuff like that, and this is kind of surface level, and it's more personalized, but it's just, now knowing that, it's just like, whoa, everything happens for a reason. We were supposed to do the podcast last week, that didn't happen. We're doing it this week, today. It was on his birthday, and it's just like, okay, I'm a little emotional right now. It's just
Well,
so much.
To make matters worse, the 21st is the day he died.
Which is
So,
another, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, but it's just like, even that, knowing that today, is the anniversary of his death. He died after his birthday. It doesn't hurt as because, once again, it's just like, doing this podcast, and it feels like a celebration of his life. Even in death, it's just like he is still being such a big influence on so many people that, you don't really think about it. It's like, oh, it's sad, but you're like, man, his legacy lives on.
Mm-hmm.
You got the Dwayne McDuffie Awards. Static came on HBO Max last week out of nowhere to talk. Now we're getting to read.
Damage Control was in Spider-Man: Homecoming.
Yeah, there it is. There's so much. So it's just like, man, this Dwayne McDuffie. I wish you were alive today, because God, you just done. Thank you. Just really, really thank you. And there's a lot of other people who have done a lot of things, but we'll talk about them another time. This is in his accolades, but just thank you for letting me see myself and just giving stories. It's meant a lot in so many. Just words cannot express the gratitude. Pretty much what I'm getting at, without trying to trip over my own tongue. Just a breathtaking, a giant amongst men. Just definitely up there with Stanley to me. Yeah. Guy was masterful. sorry to drone on. I'm so sorry, guys.
You're fine. Like, seriously,
Just like,
as we may be fans, but the stuff that he's done hits us nowhere near on the same level as it would hit someone like you.
Yeah.
Just because, we don't have the same struggles. We don't have to worry about the same, fears just in general in life. If I get pulled over, I'm going to worry about the same things you're going to have to worry.
Yeah.
There's, I want you on because you will be able to speak to all of this way better than Alan and I can. And I have zero problems with you hijacking this podcast because it's why I wanted you on. I wanted you to be able to speak for all these things that he represented, for everything he worked his ass off to try and get across through his entire career. And so to have you on here and just to let it out to, you know, be open about how much all of this is still a thing, even with as much progress has happened, how much still
Yeah.
needs to happen. You know, I'm glad to have
Yeah.
you on, and I'm glad you're able to just, you know, speak your mind
Yeah.
about all this.
I really do appreciate that, for you guys having me on and let me talk about it and just, express it because he paved the way for so many. And like I said, I don't the DC just animated era just that is all Dwayne McDuffie. I mean, there's a lot of people that did it, but the first thing the name you say is Dwayne McDuffie. You say Justice League, you say Dwayne McDuffie, you say pretty much those DC animated movies. You say Dwayne McDuffie. There's other people who did great ones. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Alan and Josh, but and he did some stuff with Marvel too. Did he? Did he not? Or no?
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, that's
he-
kind of where his comic career started, and then he
Yeah.
dabbled in it a little bit later on. But yeah, for the most part, he was, even with Milestone, it was still basically a DC thing, in the
Yeah.
background. So he was basically DC majority of his career.
Yeah, and DC gave him control, and I honestly would have, if he was still alive, you think they would have let him be the head of like the DC movie division?
Oh man, I don't know. You would like to think they would have.
Yeah, but because he's being black, I doubt it. But still, I mean, I mean, we laugh, but it's kind of true.
Yeah,
But I
like I
think
don't even
he
know if
would
there's
have
like anybody on the animation side who's taken charge of the live action stuff.
I definitely think he would have had. He's writing Justice League Dark. I definitely think he would have had a hand in movies, and I definitely think he would have done for Black Lightning, the TV show, for sure. But I mean, in a perfect world where Dwayne is still alive, it would be great to see him do stuff for the DC universe, the live action. Just me, wishful thinking.
I mean, if he had a bigger hand in all that stuff, it definitely would have been, I think, turned out a lot better than what it did.
Yeah. He would have did a better job than redacted on those, cuts for Justice League and stuff like that.
Well, I think, God, how long have we been going now? A little over 2 hours.
Yeah, I think
I said we weren't going to go that long on this episode. I think this is the longest episode we've done this month.
You know what? That is my bad, and I feel like that is a common thing. Is just like anytime we do an episode, is like, oh, it's gonna be an hour. It's like 2 hours. I'm like, oh crap, I talk freaking much.
It was worth it. I have no regrets having you on. I've loved this episode.
Thank you, appreciate it, man. I'm sorry,
So-
Alan, man.
no, it's fine, dude.
So before I cut everyone loose, is there anything else you want to bring up before we go? Or I know it's late on your guys' end, especially. So
I've said enough, so I'm just gonna let you guys have your go ahead.
Alan, is there anything else you want to bring up before?
No, not really.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, the only, as I was reading through his stuff, the only thing I would have liked to have seen more from him is more characters that he could have used his, physics knowledge in,
Yeah.
reading like Fantastic Four and his Firestorm run and all that, where I think using his background in physics would have been such a fantastic use in some of those characters with, the more sciencey stuff. But
Yeah,
it's a shame. But
yeah, it is, and definitely would have loved to see him do some more Marvel stuff, as well.
yeah. Okay, yeah. So that's it. I will let everyone go to bed and all that. The only thing I want to mention is that, the Dwayne McDuffie Fund, if you can contribute to it, please go contribute to it. I will post a link in the show notes, just like I have the past couple weeks. I guess they have like a tribute video at the end of the McDuffie Award for Diversity that they did today. So if I can find that video, I will post it on our Twitter. And if there's a direct link, I'll post that in the show notes as well.
It's
on
the Dwayne McDuffie Award Facebook page.
Okay, I'll check that out. But other than that, just the normal stuff, rate, review, share the podcast. Yada, yada, yada. I don't want to make this about us. This is about Dwayne. And don't let all the work he did in his career go to waste. Spread, the love for the characters. Don't let diversity hit a brick wall. Just change the industry for the better. And it can get better. It can get much, much better. So, you know what? Just keep doing it. For his legacy, for everyone else who needs to see themselves reflected in any medium that is clearly not there yet.
Yeah.
And so, Alan, do you want to, I'm not going to do my Twitter and all that. I don't care at this point. I'm more concerned with Dwayne's thing, but Alan, do you want to share your Twitter and all that?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at the Alan Muir.
And do you have a tweet of the week?
Yes, I do. It's from 9 hours ago today when Emma and I were recording Players Club. It's just simply a quote that says, "Alan Wake is Sam Lake." Because Emma was just talking about Alan Wake, like him being his stuff with Control being an altered world event, or him being a special type of person, like an anomaly type of person. And I said, "Oh, so Sam Lake then."
I got that reference.
And then Javon, I will leave you to spread your goodwill here.
Yeah, I mean, and Alan loves this. We used to do this on the other podcast where they used to call out my name. I do have a Twitter. If you guys want to hit me up and follow me, I do get unapologetic. So just fair warning. But you can find me on Twitter to the U to the Z to the M. I mean U to the Z to the A to the M to the A to the K to the I to the J. Uzumaki J. Yes, that's Uzumaki J on Twitter.
I love it when you do that.
Really.
I always forget you do it.
Every time I know on the podcast, I'm like, Alan doesn't even have to say a word. I already know it. I'm going to do it, and we're just going to rock it. So, yeah. Thanks. Once again, thanks for having me on the podcast. Right. This is really fun.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. Seriously, I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And with that, we will bid you all adieu. See you further down the Hypertime, and long live Dwayne McDuffie.
Long live.
This has been a VGU.TV production. For all of the hottest hot takes and other opinions on video games, music, and a lot more, tune in to VGU.TV.